We have some big news coming out of the Middle East. It has been confirmed that an Israeli airstrike on the southern part of Beirut has taken out a Hezbollah commander named Ibrahim Kubasi, who was important in their rocket division. I mean, he was the top commander. So everything you saw on the manufacturing of rockets, the imports of rockets, using rockets, he was the guy. Now, this is a major setback for Hezbollah, but when you look at the chain of command for Hezbollah, they're pretty much all missing. Literally, almost all of the top commanders, except for the guy in charge of Hezbollah, they've pretty much all been taken out. Now, because of this strike, this has raised more concerns that the ongoing conflict could turn into a bigger war and destabilize the Middle East. It also has to be mentioned that 6 people were taken out and 15 others were hurt, according to Lebanon's health ministry. And overall, throughout all of Lebanon, it's being reported by Lebanese health ministry that 500 plus personnel have been taken out and almost 2,000 have been injured. Now, those numbers are pretty much looping civilians and Hezbollah all together, so it's very difficult to pinpoint how many were Hezbollah, how many were women and children, etc. Now, on the ground in Lebanon, the attacks have caused panic throughout all of Lebanon, with many remembering the destruction that was caused by the 2006 war between Israel and Hezbollah. I mean, Israel has been targeting Hezbollah now for around 2 days with wave and wave and wave of airstrikes throughout all of Lebanon, mainly going after munitions facilities or any homes that are suspect to be housing munitions. That's according to Israel. But even though all of this is happening, Hezbollah is actually managing to launch their own barrages towards Israel. However, due to Israeli technology, every single time Hezbollah launches a barrage, they're either all intercepted by the Iron Dome or there is a direct counterstrike on where those barrages were launched. I mean, you have to understand, Lebanon right now is under 24/7 constant watch, and Israel has been planning for a strike like this for a long time now. It just so happens, according to Israel, everything is lining up to where they were given the green light to actually go after all of these targets. And to be fair to Hezbollah, they've always boasted they have a stockpile large enough to overwhelm the Iron Dome. And I think that was Hezbollah's main hope, is that eventually Hezbollah will be given their own green light by Iran, and we'll get to them in a second, that they will be able to overwhelm Israel and launch a massive strike and devastate all of Israel. But that's obviously not happening. So again, what we are seeing in Lebanon is quite interesting because you are seeing these precision strikes on HVTs, high-value targets, going after the entire top of Hezbollah and also the bottom of Hezbollah near the southern portions of Lebanon, taking out your regular commanders and lieutenants and ground soldiers, but also going after homes, going after infrastructure of Hezbollah. It's quite interesting to see all of this go down and all of the devastating effects that Israel is causing on Lebanon, because there's also a massive outcry from the world community, to include the UN, that this does need to stop. But one of the main countries that really wants this to stop is Iran. In fact, Iran's president, Masoud Pezeshkian, accused Israel of trying to drag the Middle East into a larger war, possibly involving Iran. He also said Iran doesn't want war, but will defend itself and its allies. He also criticized the international community for not speaking out against what he called Israel's genocide in Gaza. Now, what I find interesting about all of this is that Iran has always said they're going to respond. They're going to respond to all of these strikes that occurred not only on Iranian soil, taking out one of the top Hamas leaders, but also on Lebanese soil. Now, one thing that Lebanon and Israel both have in common right now is that the people of northern Lebanon have all been displaced and the people of southern Lebanon have all been displaced as well. When we're talking about tens of thousands of people just scattered everywhere trying to run to safety. Now, I have been trying to find some resources as to whether or not Israel is planning on going boots on the ground in southern Lebanon. All Israel is stating is that they will do whatever it takes to bring people back home in northern Israel. So I don't discredit whether or not Israel will do this, but it does not look likely. What it looks like right now is that Israel is just using the full might of the Israeli Air Force and their counterintelligence teams and their artillery units just to go after all of Hezbollah targets throughout Lebanon, and it looks like they're having quite success. As far as Hezbollah, it doesn't look like they're also anticipating some sort of ground attack, considering a lot of Hezbollah forces are actually retreating from the south. Now, the White House and the Pentagon have also responded to all of this. The White House straight up said, look, all American citizens, while you can, please get out of Lebanon now. This announcement was also made by the State Department a couple days ago at the time of me making this video. The State Department has also put Lebanon on a level 4 do not travel. So nobody should be going to Lebanon, but a majority of Americans should try to get out of Lebanon now while you can, because the embassy is not going to be coming out to save you guys. You're pretty much going to be on your own if you're an American citizen, and that's what the United States is saying. Now, what I also find interesting about all of this is that the U.S. Navy just so happens to be deploying the USS Harry Truman. Thus, there will be 2 carrier groups in the Middle East, which is a lot of firepower for the U.S. And speaking of firepower, on September 10th, it was also confirmed that the submarine USS Georgia is also in the Middle East right now. So overall, the Pentagon is boasting around 40,000 troops in the region. And the Pentagon was even asked, is this going to be enough in case a regional war breaks out? And the US actually stated, yes, we're actually confident everything should be okay. You have to understand, when there is an aircraft carrier in the region, that is massive firepower. But when there's 2 on top of a submarine, on top of ground troops, there's actually a lot of firepower right now in the Middle East where the U.S. deems reasonably safe for U.S. troops in the Middle East and also U.S. assets. Something else a lot of people are not talking about is that although it does seem like Israel is on their own against Iran, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and other factions, Israel indirectly also has, we know about the United States, but they also have Saudi Arabia and Jordan. Not that they're the strongest of allies, but it just so happens that those 2 countries are not friends with Iran, and they also don't want Iran using their airspace to try and go after Israel. So if the Houthis are going to try and launch a strike up the corridor through Saudi Arabia and not the Red Sea, Saudi Arabia already stated we're going to take down those strikes. And also Jordan has already been downing drones being launched from Iraq belonging to Iranian factions. So again, we are seeing these indirect relationships. Again, I'm not stating these countries are friends with Israel, but nonetheless, it does look like Israel is using them as a buffer to make sure they're not getting hit from the east and the south. And among all of this, one thing I think everyone is forgetting is that Israel is also still heavily involved down in Gaza. It seems like all of a sudden the world has forgot about Gaza, but that conflict is still ongoing and is still very active. So that is currently what's going on in the Middle East. Again, I think a lot of people are a little afraid about the U.S. troop presence in the Middle East, as in like we have a lot of U.S. troops out there. Is there going to be another war? But again, I don't see an indication that Iran is that serious about helping out their allies, the Houthis. I think Iran needs to be careful on their own terms because, look, they have a deal with Russia. They're still trying to supply Russia with their own munitions. They're still trying to save their own homelands. So, look, they're going to be careful on whether or not they're going to actually retaliate. I think they will get involved eventually. They will have no choice. Otherwise, all of Hezbollah, it looks like, is just going to be utterly destroyed here very soon.